Welcome back to the channel. We'll be doing a simple history, shameless copycat combat vehicles. So you can tell that there'll be probably a lot of Chinese in here vehicles. So yeah, let's get on with the video.
Vehicles in history. Unlike cheating on a test in school, copying a design for a piece of
a 60s design in America from the CIA to spy.
Military technology is almost as difficult as coming up with the original innovation. Even if a country had access to an original piece of equipment, disassembling and reworking the construction process is nearly impossible without blueprints detailing the manufacturer's process. Frame it this way: the original recipe for Coca-Cola is available for everyone online, but no matter how hard you try, nothing you make will taste exactly the same.
Nope.
For military vehicles, general shapes and material may be replicated, but things such as hardness, tempering, heat treatments, and machine precision cuts are impossible.
Which is why a lot of these machines may look similar, but be much worse. And in some cases a little bit better.
To get exact, leading to an avalanche of design problems in the copied product. Chinese PLZ-05 tank.
Think a copy of the American 2S19.
Copied from Soviet Union 2S19 EMSTA-S tank. The defense industry of Russia has a vested interest in exporting.
Now, yes, Russia has actually quite a good, large military, but a lot of their weapons are outdated, as we've seen in the current war. And it has meant that actually, it's surprising to think of that China is still using Soviet looking ones, and the Russians are using the actual tanks that they're based on still to this day, because they don't have the money to build their own ones after the Soviet Union.
Advanced weaponry to China. Through their exchange, Russia is provided with both an eager buyer, ready to spend massive amounts of money in stimulating Russian manufacturing, and a way to indirectly curb U.S. power in Asia by bolstering Chinese defenses to reduce pressure on their own flanks. However, this exchange isn't without drawbacks, as Russian weapons often fall victim to Chinese
Yeah, so fake AK-47s are everywhere these days. And the Chinese military have become actually so good at making fake ones that you probably wouldn't be able to tell them apart unless you actually shot them.
Copycats. China will buy Russian supplies in limited quantities just to take the technology apart and make copies of it.
Yeah.
These Chinese copies are then sold around the world, undercutting Russian exports. One glaring
and they are all sold as genuine.
Example of this is the Chinese PLZ-05, which is a shameless knockoff of the Soviet Union's 2S19 EMSTA-S. Originally developed in 1976, the 2S19 tank was designed by the Soviet Union as a self-propelled howitzer. Similar in appearance to the T-80, which is another Soviet design, the 2S19 utilizes a very similar hull, but borrows its diesel engine from yet a different.
So yeah, this tank was kind of a collaboration of loads of different tanks together, and then what China has done is put a lot more tanks into it, basically.
Soviet tank, the T-72. This combination of elements come together to create a vehicle that has a distinctly Russian Soviet Union feel. That is, until China bought the tank and took it apart to make their own version, although it was extremely difficult to replicate the original transmission.
Well, yeah, because it was an old vehicle, and Russian transmissions were actually quite different to a lot of the world at the time. Mostly because they weren't really connected to the rest of the world for about 1922, basically.
And diesel engine. The Chinese were successful in producing the PLZ-05 tank, copying the semi-automatic loading system from the 2S19, as well as modifying its V84A diesel engine into the 8V150 cooled turbocharged diesel engine.
Yeah.
The Chinese created another self-propelled howitzer. Although the PLZ-05's main armament is 4 meters longer than the 2S19, both utilize howitzers that fire calibers just 5 millimeters in difference. Even when comparing the look of these two vehicles side by side, it's not hard to see where the Chinese...
It's only really the barrel that looks different and the paint coat, but apart from that, they don't look too much different. It's just more down to small details like the tracks. But again, they're very minor differences that some people might not even be able to tell if they've never seen the other.
Their howitzer on wheels from.
Well, hello there. It's even harder to copy the off your land and type.com
/SH10
to get your gifts now and help support the channel. Move as quickly as decorum allows. The first 200 people to use our link will be guaranteed a spot close by each other and us, stretching our simple history kingdom all the way to Scotland. Purchase a title pack today.
German Fokker Eindecker plane.
Yes. The Fokker was actually one of the most famous German planes of World War One, and it was a reconnaissance plane created in 1915, and actually had quite a good flight range on it. And well, I say reconnaissance; it also had a machine gun on it, but I think it was made out of wood mostly and metal. It was one, and it actually had quite a good engine on it, and because of how high the machine gun was, it was higher than the propellers, I think, which meant that you didn't need a timer on it.
From the French Marine Saulnier 8 shoulder wing plane. Anthony Fokker, who was a Dutch aircraft designer working in Germany during World War I, wanted to find a way to mount a gun to the front of his plane without worrying about the bullets hitting his propeller. Previously, engineers had attempted to move the propeller to the back of the plane, clearing the front for an unobstructed firing site.
But it just meant that enemies would shoot the propellers instead, destroying the plane and it going down, which meant that it was useless.
This slowed the plane down to an impractical speed. Lucky for Fokker, his answer came falling out of the sky on April 18th, 1915, when French pilot Roland Garros was shot down. Although Garros...
Oh wait, no, they put a timer on it on the Fokker. That's why it was famous, but I thought it was because it was higher, because the diagrams show it was higher. But I remember it was one German plane that was based on a French plane, because there was several different types of Fokkers, which had, and I knew it was a Fokker, which had the propeller timer, which was actually quite cool.
Was able to light his Marine Saulnier shoulder wing plane on fire before being captured. German forces were able to salvage the gun and armored propeller from his aircraft. Studying Garros's plane, Fokker discovered 2 key French innovations which would help resolve his forward-facing gun problem. First, Fokker examined the synchronizer, which was patented by Garros's colleague Raymond Saulnier. This synchronizer allowed the firing rate of the gun to be timed with the position of the propeller on the plane, so that the gun would never fire while the propeller was in the way. However, machine guns during this period were very unreliable and apt to irregular firing rates. So Fokker's real surprise came when he discovered that Garros's plane had protective wedges fitted onto the propeller blades, which
meant that if it did accidentally get shot, and it could take a few shots, so that because it was an old machine gun, it meant that it could resist a few firings of irregular fire.
Deflected rounds which may have struck the propeller. Fokker had been working on his own design for years, and with this new discovery, he was able to enhance his previous designs to make an elite fighter plane.
Yes.
These discoveries allowed German forces to begin mass-producing planes which featured a front-facing gun. The Fokker Eindecker fighter planes soon became nightmares for Allied pilots, causing casualties in what would become known as the Fokker Scourge.
I think it lasted about a year, the Fokker Scourge. Everyone always laughs at the name, though, which is actually quite annoying since it's a very important plane.
As the Fokker Scourge. Chinese Type 726...
Ah, yes! Copy the LCAC, which is an American design, I think. And it's basically just a hovercraft, which can be used on land and in the sea, and it's controlled by the Navy, of course. And it's one of the most popular modes of transport when landing, just because it has a large capacity of people and it can go on land and sea. So it's basically just a landing craft. And it's very similar to the passenger ones that they sent from England to the Isle of Wight.
A landing craft, copied from the U.S. Navy LCAC. The Chinese Navy at the beginning of the 21st century lagged behind all other global powers in their ability to land troops during amphibious...
Which was very surprising, seeing as China had some goals in the South China Sea of gaining land.
Operations. Needing a lightweight vessel capable of transporting heavily armored vehicles and tanks, they looked across the ocean to the United States for an answer. The U.S. had been designing and implementing air-cushioned landing craft capable of carrying tanks since the 80s with spectacular results. These landing crafts, also called over-the-beach crafts, allowed the U.S. to access over 70% of the world's coastline. Unlike traditional boat-type landing crafts, the air-cushioned vessels could glide over sandbars or uneven surfaces and swampland without becoming stuck and without compromising their maximum...
And actually what a lot of boats are based on in the Everglades, because it's just a swamp, basically.
Load capacity. Equipped with 4 gas turbines, the U.S. Navy's landing craft could reach speeds of 40 knots, even with a full load, which could include up to 180 fully equipped soldiers and an M1 Abrams tank. In addition to this,
one of the best ever American tanks.
Features on the craft allowed it to operate in numerous capacities, including anti-mine measures, heavy equipment delivery, evacuation, and lane breaching. Unsurprisingly, when China released their Type 726A landing craft in 2010...
You have to see, they look almost the exact same, except the cushion is a little bit more flat on the Chinese one, and the position of the propellers. But again, that's about it. Is different, and that just means that you can tell where the inspiration is from.
We were quick to spot the blatant similarities between it and the U.S. Navy's LCAC. Both vessels are propelled by gas turbines, although the Type 726A only has 2 compared to the LCAC's 4. Both can carry over 50 tons and utilize air cushion technology to lift over shallow obstacles, and both vessels can dock without using facilities, enabling them to operate in many dynamic wartime scenarios. China's willingness to adopt technologies and strategies from other countries may see more shameless amphibious...
And it's also, actually, there's been a couple of lawsuits, actually, from it. But because China's, with their copyright laws, are so loose, that they can never go through.
Copycat says the U.S. works to improve naval capabilities. U.S. HH-43 copied from the German Flettner Fi-282.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about this one.
During World War II, U.S. Army Air Forces launched Operation Lusty, which aimed to capture and analyze German aeronautical technology on a massive scale. Intelligence teams were dispersed across mainland Europe to infiltrate enemy aircraft, research facilities, and weapons manufacturers. One of the most successful discoveries from this operation was the German Flettner Fi-282, a single-seat helicopter with intermeshing rotors. Unlike previous designs, Anton Flettner, designer of the helicopter of the same name, used 2 rotors, rotating in opposite directions to eliminate the need for a tail rotor, which was a massive drain on power for the helicopter. Following the conclusion of World War II, U.S. engineers dug out the designs for Flettner's helicopter and decided to try and replicate his intermeshing rotor technology. In 1947, the man himself, Anton Flettner, was flown to New York as part of Operation Paperclip to become the chief designer of the Cayman Company and oversee new designs based on his technology. One of these new designs was the U.S. HH-43 Husky helicopter, which was used for the next 2 decades by the U.S. Navy and Air Force to carry out intense rescue missions. The Husky helicopter saw widespread use during the Vietnam War, and because of its unique ability to hover in place, was used in more rescue missions than all other aircrafts combined. A result of Operation Paperclip, which was a secret government program in the United States which allowed former German scientists, technicians, and engineers to find jobs working for the American government, Flettner's role in the HH-43 Husky places an exclamation point on the idea of stealing other countries' technology.
Well, it's not really stealing, it's the inventor literally creates it for you.
U.S. M1917 tank, copied from...
Okay, yeah. So there's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences with this one. But it was... They basically just took one and painted it, but then created it really rubbishly. But this was 1917, so...
The French Renault FT tank. Germany was not the only country the United States shamelessly stole technology from. After entering the First World War in 1917, U.S. forces quickly realized that tanks...
Yeah, tanks actually became popular very quickly, which is actually quite weird, because the original tank was rubbish. And then you had the sample tank from New Zealand, which was basically just a tractor. So a lot of these weren't really quite good, but then the Germans had quite a good way of making them, actually. And some tanks, I think one tank, I can't remember which one it was, actually created the way that most modern tanks are made now.
Were the best technologies suited for the battlefield, and began researching all designs currently in use at the time. What they found was that the product of a French manufacturing company, Renault Automobile Company, was the most effective revolutionary light tank to be in service. As the first production tank to have a fully rotating turret included inside...
Yeah, it was this one. I thought it was, but I wasn't quite sure.
Inside the armament, the French Renault tank was deployed in huge numbers to overwhelm and swarm enemy lines, utilizing their Hotchkiss machine gun and Puteaux cannon with devastating effect.
Yeah, so it used actually a German machine gun, and it also, because it was the first one with the rotating top, it means it could be actually made cheaper, because it was cheap because it didn't need as many machine guns. That's the word I was looking for. And because it didn't need as many machine guns, it meant that it could be made a little bit cheaper, because the machine guns were some of the most expensive part of it. And it meant that, in theory, it could take down an entire trench of troops firing and not really be damaged at all.
Soon, U.S. Commander-in-Chief General John Pershing launched a program to develop and manufacture the French Renault tank in the United States. Aside from moving the exhaust pipe from the left side of the vehicle to the right, changing the material on the wheels, and adding additional vision slits for the driver, the U.S. version of the Renault tank, the M1917, was an identical copy. The design of the Renault tank still stands against the test of time and is considered the world's first modern tank, with its interior configuration maintaining its status as the standard for all battle tanks to this day. Shameless copies of vehicles exist across countries, periods in history, and cover air.
Anyway, that's the end of the video, so remember to like and subscribe and all that, and I'll see you in the next video.